All right, welcome to lecture 6, the final one of chapter 8. Okay, so in this video, I'm just going to go over the configuring the various forms of DHCP in version 6. And I'm going to say ahead of time so you know, we are only configuring the router. We may configure the router as a client and we'll configure it as a server. But you know from the discussion previously about stateless and stateful addressing and managed and self-choosing of the addresses, that the server is generally not involved unless it's the case that's just like DHCP4. So let's get into the slides. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're only going to be configuring routers here. The client, when the client is a host, like a PC, that sort of thing, it's pretty easy to just click the DHCP button and version 6. Okay, but we're talking about routers being clients and servers, which is the things that need configuration. So let's start with the server. So this is going to be the router on the left, and we're making it a server. Now that does not mean it's going to hand out the addresses. It only means we're making it into a DHCP server, right? So the first thing we need is, let's see, we got IPv6. We have to enable it as a unicast routing. So we have to say we're going to do IPv6 routing here. And this is kind of not a server command specifically. Don't get it wrong. Look where we are in the configuration. We're here in config mode, right? We're at privileged exec, and we're here in the configuration mode right here. Right? Nowhere else. And we declare a DHCP pool and we give it a name. Right? Now we're not building the pool there, we're just giving it a name. Then there's a sequence of commands. What that does is it takes us to the DHCP version 6 area of the router hierarchy. And it says, I'm going to configure this. I'm at that point in the operating system. I'm not in an interface. I'm doing nothing with GO1 yet. And I'm going to add in two things. I'm going to put in, this is information. Okay, sorry about that. This is just information you're adding. This could be some of that other information stuff that we've been talking about here and there. If you're going to get to a DNS server, this is the address of that server. And notice with this, remember IPv6 addressing, when you got the two semicolons back to back like that, this is all zeros in here. Okay, so this is a full 128-bit address. And the domain name is going to be example.com. And then you get out of the DHCPv6. You get out of that part of the configuration. Now, if you want the thing to behave like a server, these things are interface specific. So you got to go to a specific interface, in this case, GO1. Right, I'm going up to this guy right here. And I'm giving it an address, right, in this network here. I'm giving it an address. And here again is the 00 thing going on. And its address is 1. And the prefix length is 64 bits. Okay? The server pool is named. And now you're making it a server. Here's where you make this port, this interface, a server. But you're only making it a server. So what you're providing is other information. So you have to set the O bit. This will turn it on. Okay, this turns the O bit to 1. Okay? So that's configuring a server. You haven't declared how it's going to be used or anything. You've just configured a server and made it viable on R1 port G01. Now let's go configure a client. This is so much easier. This actually looks a lot like what you get when you pull up the Windows NIC card thing. You punch one button there, the DHCP button or the auto config button, and here the similar thing, this declares the interface. You've got to name the interface. In Windows it's easy. You just have to pick, if you have multiple NIC cards, you have to pick which one you're configuring. And you can configure one as DHCP and another one as static. And we've done that on the ones at school when we put in a second NIC card, right? They don't have to both be the same. So this is the same deal going on that we had there. Then you're going to turn on IPv6. You're at the interface, so you're going to turn on IPv6, and you're going to say, I'm going to do auto config addressing. Okay, I'm telling you the addresses. I don't have an address. This is the command that would say, if I was at this interface, I'd say IPv6 address, and I would give it an address if I was static. But now I'm not being static. I'm saying I'm doing something automatic. So this is it. And I've configured it as a client. I've configured that interface right there as a client. Okay? Now, if we want to verify these things, what are we going to do? Well, the simple verification at this point, remember, it's not being used. You don't know if it's going to be used as, in what other forms it's going to be used. You don't know that yet. But you're checking the pool. That's really what you got to verify. Do I have the pool? And oh, here's that other information that I put in. And right now I don't have any clients active, right? So I'm looking at what is the pool verification. This is just using your show commands. Come on. You got to get real comfortable with doing that. That's on the server side. If you want to check the client, you got to use these commands, or these are the smart ones. Show the IPv6 interface. So when you run that, it will show you which interface is set up for IPv6 and how. And here's, give me the detail. If I run the debug command, I'll get the detail of that. And I think you got some pictures in your text for this that I'll show you. So that's the stateless approach to things, right? Stateless means it's going to provide some information, but you're going to have to actually make your own address. Right? Now we'll do stateful, and let's do the same thing. Hook up, let's configure a server, and then we can take a look at the client. This goes very similar. Notice how this starts out. Oh, that's the same first command. That just sets up IPv6 unicast. It just sets it up as routing. And it's up here in the config. It's not on a port, right? It's up here in config mode. And here it now says, here's a pool, right? So stateful is going to want something in that pool. We're not doing that here, but stateful, you're going to have to fill that pool, or it's going to have a means to fill, because in stateful, it's going to hand out the address. Oh, well, here's some information. Let's go to that pool. Here's kind of the new piece. Here's the address. This is the prefix, right? This is the prefix. This is the whole address. Here's all these zero things, and that's the prefix length. And here it specifies lifetime, and there's more than just infinite as possibilities there. right? Here's that other information, just like we had before, and we get out of that. Okay, so we've gone to the DHCP, now the V6 version of that, and figured out what information we're going to give or start with for stateful address presentation. Then if we want to use it in the stateful mode, you have to go to an interface, right? In this case, where's our interface here? Whoops, that guy right there. We have to go to him. Where did my pen go? All right. Yeah, we have to go to him, get to that interface, and now give that interface an address. And notice it's this long address with a prefix of 64, and it's number 1, right? And then now we're declaring, here's the first time we're declaring this to be a server. So now it knows when it receives things, when a client sends a message there and he gets the advertisement back, he knows he's dealing with a server. And in order for that to work, it has to be managed. So we set up a managed interface. Okay? That's straightforward. If we want to do the stateful work, the stateful configuration on a client, it's about as easy as the other one. What do you have to do? You have to get to the address, an interface, and you have to turn on IPv6. Okay? Now, it doesn't have an address. You're not addressing this thing, so there's no IP address command going on, except to say, here, you're going to do it by DHCP. Now, notice this is not auto-config. It's just DHCP, which implies you're going to be looking for a managed interface and a managed address. How do you verify some of these things? In R1, you just go look at the pool. Is this the pool that I configured? Right? And you go back and check all these things. Here's that other information that got in there too, right? And what you have to check is here's this address. The one, oh, and there's all those zeros. So that's the basis address in the pool. You're looking at the pool. You're verifying the pool here. Okay, the name of it and what the specifics are inside of it. Then you want to know, show me where the DHCP is bound, right? Am I bound to something? And this is the client address, right, that I'm after. And this address is C171. I actually think we saw that before. We'll be seeing it again. That's sort of the quick look. But this is a long address, right? So that's the address that is bound. It's the binding address for DHCP v6. Yeah. So let me just say that this is this client address. Oops, what happened here? I lost my pen. Anyway, this client address, that's the link local address of the client, right? The link local address of R3. This address is the address that got sent to in a managed fashion, that got given to, this got assigned to port G01 of R3. I'm going to put my pen on. So this guy got assigned to that, okay? And it's bound by that link local address there ending in 2DE1. Okay, so in verifying this, a lot of this we've seen. We just saw this C171. So notice now, just so you know where we're at here in the picture, I go back. C171 is bound to that port on R3. Now I'm going to R3. Here I am. And show me the interface. And there's that address. That's the one that got assigned. Okay? And the rest of this is IPv6 stuff that you're used to. All right. I want to say a couple of comments about the router as a relay agent. We had this picture before. And nothing's changed on it except now it's all illustrated on IPv6. So this is going to become a relay. And what we want to do is connect messages coming out of here. We want to connect them over to this server. So it's pretty easy to set up. We're in R1. And we interface. We got to get to the right interface. That's our G0. So we start out here. And we set that up as a relay destination. And here's the destination address. This one right here. That's the destination address. And we end it there. Right? Then we show the IPv6 interface G0 and we see what we just did. So really all we did was take our input here and name it as the input for a relay. Any DHCP inquiries coming this way, like the RS, the request for a response, DHCP6, IPv6, are going to get routed over here. And they'll get routed down to this service. Pretty straightforward. A couple of quick comments. I want to finish as this being the last one of the series for Chapter 8 on troubleshooting. You've seen this exact chart before, and no reason to change it just because it's IPv6. I just want to remind you or point out, the basics are always the same. You want to get in and resolving conflicts. You can force some issues. You're dealing with DHCP, but in the first part here, you want to make sure, don't be afraid to use static addresses. You want to make sure that the paths and the whole IPv6 routing even works. I mean, you could go through all these little details of setting up the routing, configuring it for DHCP, and never actually turn on IPv6 addressing. So you want to be real careful of that. And then here is verify the actual port connections. And this gets down into switches. If you've got subnets and VLANs, you'll have to look at that in greater detail. But a lot of the early troubleshooting, if you're dealing with real equipment, is just to make sure your hardware, your connections, and the fundamentals are set up right. I wanted to put these two side by side. The top one is, this one up here, is just the stateful. Whoops, where did my thing go? Here we go. It's stateful, and this is stateless. So, this leads into Slack. This is like the managed. By highlighting here, all you see is they're the same setups, except the flags are set different. In stateful, you have to set the managed flag, and in stateless, you don't want the managed set, but you have to. So it might not be bad to include a no managed config flag here if you really want stateless. But other than that, what are you doing? You're just defining the pool right here. You're giving it a pool of addresses. And after that, these flags really tell the operating system, this is how I want this all to be treated. Okay, you can also use the debug command. Here it is in R1, which is our server, and just say, give me the DHCP detail. And here it will spell it all out for you. The packets, the sources, destinations, and it'll give you what interface pool you're using and what bindings are created right down here. Those are standard troubleshooting tasks, so don't be afraid to just use them here. Okay, a little long on this one, but I think we're done with Chapter 8, and so much of this will come full circle when you do the packet tracers. So get into those, and we'll move on to Chapter 9 here with the lectures.